Beneath the glittering facade of progress, what primal horrors truly slumber, waiting to reassert their ancient dominion over a world that has dared to forget their very existence? It is a question that gnaws at the edges of human consciousness, a whisper from the forgotten depths that only the most sensitive, or perhaps the most cursed among us, can truly apprehend. For H.P. Lovecraft, the answer often lay hidden within the very heart of modernity, a cancerous growth rooted in primeval soil, manifesting in the concrete canyons and teeming masses of the burgeoning metropolis. And nowhere is this terrifying vision more acutely, more viscerally rendered than in his chilling urban nightmare, the short story simply titled He. This is not a tale of cosmic entities from beyond the stars, not of ancient slumbering gods, but of a horror far more insidious, far more personal, yet no less utterly devastating to the human psyche. A horror woven into the very fabric of time and place, a silent scream emanating from the very stones of a city that pulses with stolen life. Our journey into this unsettling narrative begins with a poet, an unnamed narrator who, like so many before and after him, arrived in New York City with a heart full of idealism and an imagination ignited by the promise of urban grandeur. He sought beauty, inspiration, a vibrant muse amidst the towering spires and bustling avenues, envisioning a metropolis of ethereal grace and sublime wonder. But New York, in Lovecraft's grim estimation, was never a place for such delicate sensibilities. It was a cacophony, a jumbled chaos of alien races, an architectural monstrosity devoid of the gentle antiquity and ancestral echoes that Lovecraft cherished in his beloved New England. The poet, much like Lovecraft himself during his own tumultuous, miserable tenure in the city from 1924 to 1926, found his initial enchantment swiftly decaying into a profound disillusionment, an abyssal despair that choked the very breath from his artistic soul. The city he had dreamt of, a place of silent, moonlit beauty and ancient noble forms, dissolved into a brutal, noisy, and utterly alien reality. He describes it with a palpable loathing, a nightmare chaos of sound and motion, of form and colour, a babel of tongues, a maelstrom of faces, a labyrinth of stone and steel, a place of 1,000 horrors and 1,000,000 disgusts. His once bright visions were sullied by the incessant clamour, the suffocating anonymity, and the pervasive sense of a city built not on dreams, but on the crushing weight of relentless, soulless commerce. His artistic spirit withered, and the poet, adrift and disillusioned, began to seek solace not in the city's vibrant life, but in its shadowed corners, its forgotten byways, its ancient, crumbling relics. He was drawn, as if by an unseen, malevolent magnet, to the older, more desolate parts of Greenwich Village, areas where the ceaseless tide of modernity had yet to fully erase the whispers of a forgotten past. He wandered through cobbled streets, past houses that sagged with centuries of silent secrets, seeking some faint echo of the bygone era he so desperately longed for. It was amidst these decaying vestiges of an earlier New York that his fateful encounter would take place, an encounter that would shatter what remained of his fragile sanity and plunge him into a profound, unspeakable horror that would forever blight his existence. One moonless, fog-shrouded night, as he despaired in the melancholic stillness of a forgotten square, his reverie was broken by the sudden appearance of a man, a figure seemingly carved from the very mists and shadows of that archaic district. This man was gaunt, dressed in curiously old-fashioned attire, with eyes that held an unnerving depth, reflecting a wisdom and weariness that seemed to stretch back through countless ages. He was not merely old, he was ancient, possessing an aura of immemorial time that clung to him like a shroud. With a voice that was strangely soft, yet resonant with an almost hypnotic quality, the stranger addressed the poet, revealing an uncanny understanding of his melancholic meditations, his yearning for the past, and his despair over the city's monstrous present. He spoke of the city's true history, not the shallow chronicle of colonial settlements and industrial booms, but of a far deeper, darker narrative, a story etched into the very earth long before the advent of any human habitation. He claimed to reside in a house of profound antiquity, one that predated the surrounding structures by centuries, an architectural anomaly that defied the relentless march of time. Intrigued, and perhaps desperate for any glimpse of genuine antiquity within the alien sprawl of New York, the poet accepted the old man's invitation, following him through a labyrinthine maze of winding alleys and desolate courtyards, deeper and deeper into the sepulchral heart of the forgotten village. The house, when they finally reached it, was precisely as the old man had described. A grotesque anachronism, a survivor from an age almost beyond memory, its timbered walls and steep gables silent witnesses to forgotten rituals and unspeakable events. Within its shadowed rooms, a profound stillness reigned, broken only by the rhythmic ticking of an ancient clock, a sound that would soon take on a sinister, almost unbearable significance. The air was thick with the dust of ages, heavy with the scent of decay and something indefinably older, something chthonic and unhallowed. It was in this eerie domicile that the old man began to unveil his terrible secret. He spoke of his ancestors, a lineage that traced its roots back to the Dutch settlers, but more disturbingly, to something far older, far more primordial, something that had coexisted with the ancient aboriginal spirits of the land before any European foot had ever sullied its pristine wilderness. These spirits, he explained, were not benevolent natured deities, but elemental forces, raw and indifferent, tied inextricably to the very essence of the soil, the rock, and the unseen currents of life and death that pulse beneath the earth. He revealed that through the ages his family had maintained a secret compact with these entities, a dark heritage passed down through generations, granting them forbidden knowledge and unspeakable power. This power, he elaborated, allowed them to perceive and even manipulate the flow of time, to glimpse the past and, most terrifyingly, the future. The poet, initially captivated by this fantastical narrative, soon found himself increasingly uneasy as the old man began to demonstrate his abilities. He led the poet to a window that looked out onto the supposedly unchanging urban landscape, yet through which the old man could conjure visions of the past. The poet saw not the brick and mortar of modern New York, but fleeting glimpses of primordial forests, of ancient Indian villages, of the nascent Dutch settlement, all appearing with a phantom-like clarity that defied rational explanation. These visions, though initially mesmerizing, quickly became unsettling, blurring the lines between reality and illusion, between the now and the then. The historical accuracy was chilling, the atmospheric shifts palpable, as if the very fabric of time were being peeled back before his horrified gaze. Yet these glimpses into the past were merely a prelude to the true horror that awaited. The old man, with an almost casual indifference that was more terrifying than any overt menace, revealed the true, abhorrent nature of his power. He was a necromancer, a practitioner of forbidden arts, and his unnaturally prolonged existence was not a gift, but a theft. He had, through dark pacts and arcane rituals, learned to steal time itself, siphoning the vital essence from the very flow of the universe, preserving his own withered life at the expense of an unnatural equilibrium. This theft, however, came at a terrible price. The spirits of the land, those primordial entities with whom his ancestors had forged their dreadful pact, demanded their due. They required sustenance, not of flesh and blood, but of the very temporal fabric of the city itself. They had been disturbed, their ancient slumber broken by the relentless, invasive growth of the modern metropolis, and they sought vengeance, a gruesome reclamation of what they perceived as their rightful dominion. The old man, in his desperate bid for eternal life, had become their unwilling yet complicit servant, a conduit for their malevolent will. He confessed that his continued existence was predicated on a horrifying ritual, an ongoing sacrifice, wherein he drew upon the temporal energy of the city, not merely to sustain himself, but to appease the vengeful spirits that festered beneath its foundations. The rhythmic ticking of the ancient clock in his house, the poet now realized with dawning horror, was not merely marking time, but measuring it, counting out the stolen moments, the purloined centuries. The implication was clear, chilling, and utterly sanity-blighting. The very pulse of New York City, its frantic energy, its ceaseless activity, was subtly, almost imperceptibly, being drained, warped, and perverted to fuel this ancient unholy pact. As the night wore on, the visions grew more intense, more disturbing, and the old man's narrative spiraled into ever deeper abysses of dread. He spoke of the life of the city, not as a metaphor, but as a literal entity, a vast, complex organism built upon layers of human endeavour and primal forces. He claimed that the spirits, awakened by the city's rapid expansion, were now fully roused, and their ancient anger was manifesting in subtle yet pervasive ways. The true horror, however, was yet to be fully revealed. With an eerie calm, the necromancer promised the poet a vision unlike any he had yet experienced, a glimpse into the city's ultimate future, a future shaped by the very forces he had just described. He warned the poet that this vision would be unspeakable, that it would shatter the very foundations of his reality, but the poet, caught in the old man's hypnotic thrall, and perhaps morbidly curious, could not refuse. The old man drew a dark curtain from a window that overlooked a vista of the burgeoning city, a window that had, through some unknown arcane means, become a conduit not merely to the past, but to a terrifying, inevitable future. What the poet beheld through that accursed window transcended all nightmares, all conceivable horrors. It was New York, yes, but a New York transformed, mutated, twisted into an abomination beyond all human comprehension. The city's towering skyscrapers, once symbols of progress and human achievement, were now grotesquely distorted, their spires reaching into an alien sky like the decaying fangs of some titanic, deceased beast. The once vibrant streets were choked with a pulsating, viscous mass of amorphous forms, things that crawled and writhed with an unspeakable phosphorescent life. Buildings sagged and oozed with a black ichorous slime, their forms shifting and melting as if composed of living, decaying flesh. The entire metropolis seemed to groan with a slow, rhythmic exhalation, a sound that was both a sigh of immense suffering and a gasp of unholy alien life. The very air was thick with a noxious miasma, a palpable sense of decay and cosmic wrongness that permeated every visual detail. There were no human forms, no recognizable signs of sentient life, only the obscene, sprawling growth of a city utterly consumed by the primordial entities that had always lain dormant beneath its foundations. It was a vision of New York not merely overgrown or ruined, but fundamentally transmogrified, becoming a vast cyclopean organism of pure horror, an entity of squirming, pulpy matter and unholy bioluminescent effulgence, a cancer of the earth given monstrous conscious form. The horror was not merely visual, it was existential. The city had become a living tomb, a blasphemous monument to a reality beyond human reason, a future not of evolution but of devolution into something unspeakable. This final annihilating vision broke the poet. His mind, already strained by the urban cacophony and the gradual dissolution of his dreams, completely fractured under the sheer weight of this impossible, unthinkable revelation. The ancient clock in the room, which had maintained its rhythmic ticking throughout the night, suddenly ceased, plunging the room into an unnerving silence. In that same instant, the old man, who had been observing the poet with an unsettling, detached gaze, underwent a horrifying transformation. His ancient form seemed to shimmer, to waver, and then to rapidly decay, dissolving into a ghastly fungal mass before the poet's horrified eyes. The necromancer, having inadvertently shown the poet the absolute truth of his unholy pact and the city's ultimate fate, had perhaps overstepped some boundary, disrupted some delicate balance in his stolen existence. Or perhaps the sudden cessation of the clock signified the final tolling of his stolen time, his unholy lease on life abruptly revoked. Whatever the precise mechanism, the effect was immediate and absolute. The vision of the city's monstrous future, the old man's horrifying demise, and the sudden cessation of the clock combined to unleash an unbearable torrent of dread that overwhelmed the poet's fragile sanity. He fled the house, screaming into the desolate streets, his mind forever scarred, his perception of reality irrevocably warped. He was found later, a gibbering wreck, babbling incoherently about ancient horrors, stolen time, and a city that would one day become a pulsating, gelatinous abomination. His idealized vision of New York had been utterly annihilated, replaced by a grotesque understanding of its true, infernal nature. This chilling narrative, he, is more than just a ghost story or a simple tale of urban dread. It is a profound testament to Lovecraft's deepest fears and anxieties, a thinly veiled allegorical expression of his own personal torment during his 2-year exile in the teeming alien metropolis of New York. Lovecraft's own tumultuous years in the city, from 1924 to 1926, were a period of intense creative output, but also of profound personal misery and cultural alienation. A staunch Anglo-Saxon conservative who detested the burgeoning cosmopolitanism of American cities, he found New York to be a bewildering, repulsive nexus of polyglot elements and hybrid races. He yearned for the quiet, ancestral solace of his native Providence, Rhode Island, and saw New York as a monstrous, soulless entity, a grotesque affront to his sensibilities. He viewed its architecture as vulgar, its noise as unbearable, and its diverse population as a chaotic, threatening foreign invasion. This personal abhorrence is palpably evident in the narrator's own descent into disillusionment. The poet's initial idealism is Lovecraft's own artistic yearning, and his subsequent revulsion is a direct mirroring of Lovecraft's profound xenophobia and misanthropy. The story becomes a powerful psychogeographical exploration, where the external environment directly impacts and ultimately destroys the internal landscape of the protagonist. New York is not just a setting, it is a character, an antagonist, a living, breathing entity whose very existence is a threat to human sanity and order. Thematic exploration in He delves into several quintessential Lovecraftian obsessions, albeit with a uniquely urban focus. Firstly, the theme of urban horror is paramount. Lovecraft consistently depicted cities, particularly those with a vibrant, diverse population, as loci of decay, corruption, and ancient evils. In He, New York is stripped of any romantic veneer, revealed instead as a parasitic entity built upon a substrate of primeval malevolence. The city's relentless growth is portrayed as an aggressive violation of ancient pacts, disturbing slumbering entities that now seek their gruesome retribution. The modern city, with its skyscrapers and relentless energy, is not a symbol of human triumph, but a ticking time bomb, a monument to hubris that will ultimately be devoured by the very forces it sought to suppress or ignore. The transformation of New York into a pulsating, sentient horror at the story's climax is the ultimate manifestation of this urban dread, suggesting that the city's true, deep nature is something utterly alien and terrifyingly alive. Secondly, the concept of time and necromancy forms the chilling core of the narrative. The old man is not merely a sorcerer. He is a temporal thief, sustaining his life by drawing upon the very flow of time. This act is not just forbidden. It is a blasphemy against the natural order, a hubristic defiance of cosmic law. Lovecraft was fascinated by the fluidity and power of time, often presenting it as a dimension rather than a linear progression. Here, time is a tangible, stealable commodity, and its theft leads to an unnatural, prolonged existence that comes with a terrible existential cost. The old man's necromancy is inextricably linked to the primordial spirits of the land, hinting at a cycle where ancient entities are fed by the very fabric of stolen time, manifesting their vengeance through the city's gradual, horrifying transformation. The cessation of the clock at the story's climax is a powerful symbol, marking not just the old man's demise, but perhaps a momentary terrifying reassertion of natural order or a catastrophic disruption in the temporal equilibrium he had so precariously maintained. It raises questions about the true nature of existence and the profound consequences of tampering with forces beyond human comprehension. A third significant theme is the past never truly dies. This is a recurring motif in Lovecraft's work, where ancient evils and forgotten histories relentlessly intrude upon the present. The Old Man's House, an anachronism in the heart of modern New York, is a physical manifestation of this idea. It is a portal to a time when primordial forces held sway, a place where the aboriginal spirits of the land still whisper. The visions of ancient New York, of Dutch settlements and primordial forests, serve to remind us that beneath the concrete and steel lie layers of history, not just human history, but the deeper, more terrifying history of the earth itself, replete with entities that predate humanity and resent its intrusion. The old man's lineage, stretching back to a dark pact with these spirits, suggests that certain bloodlines, certain places, are forever tethered to these ancient, unhallowed powers. The city's future transformation into a grotesque organism is the ultimate revenge of this past, a final reclaiming of the land by its original, horrific inhabitants. Furthermore, he delves into the theme of art and madness. The narrator is a poet, sensitive, imaginative, and initially idealistic. These very qualities, which make him receptive to beauty and profound ideas, also render him tragically vulnerable to the horrors he encounters. His artistic sensibility allows him to perceive the hidden truths of the city, to understand the old man's blasphemous tales, and ultimately to comprehend the unspeakable vision of New York's future. But this comprehension comes at a devastating cost. Lovecraft often explored the idea that true knowledge of the cosmos, of the universe's indifferent vastness and its grotesque inhabitants, inevitably leads to madness for the fragile human mind. The poet's breakdown is not merely a consequence of fear, but of an absolute irreversible insight into a reality that human reason cannot and should not tolerate. His art, which once sought to elevate, becomes the very instrument of his downfall, exposing him to horrors that shatter his capacity for creative expression and ultimately for coherent thought. And finally, he embodies Lovecraft's distinctive brand of cosmic dread, even though its scale is more localized than, say, the Call of Cthulhu. The horror is not just of a necromancer, but of the universe's profound indifference, the vastness of time that dwarfs human existence, and the lurking presence of entities whose motivations and forms are utterly alien. The final vision of New York, a city transformed into a living, oozing abomination, is the ultimate expression of this cosmic dread. It is not merely a horrific image, it is a vision of existential insignificance, of humanity's futile attempts to impose order and meaning on a universe that is fundamentally chaotic, ancient, and ultimately hostile. The city, once a symbol of human achievement, becomes a testament to its ultimate vulnerability and irrelevance in the face of truly primordial forces. The horror is in the realization that human existence is a thin, fragile veneer over an abyss of unimaginable, non-human terror. Lovecraft's literary craft in He is exemplary of his signature style, a style that prioritizes atmosphere and psychological dread over overt action. His language is meticulously chosen, often archaic, and laden with adjectives that build a pervasive sense of unease. Words like eldritch, sepulchral, anachronism, abomination, primordial, unspeakable, and chthonic are deployed with precision, creating a dense, suffocating mood. The pacing is slow and deliberate, a gradual descent into madness that mirrors the poet's own psychological unraveling. He doesn't rush to the horror. He meticulously builds it, layer by agonizing layer, preparing the reader for the ultimate, devastating reveal. The narrative relies heavily on implication and suggestion rather than explicit description, allowing the reader's imagination, spurred by Lovecraft's evocative prose, to conjure horrors more terrible than any explicit depiction could achieve. The final vision of New York, while described in detail, still retains an air of the indescribable, forcing the reader to confront the limits of their own understanding and sanity. This masterful use of indirect horror is a hallmark of Lovecraft's genius. The first-person narrative voice places the reader directly into the poet's deteriorating mind, making his fear and eventual madness profoundly contagious. We experience the creeping dread alongside him, making his final breakdown all the more impactful and terrifying, as we are left to wonder about the fragility of our own perceptions of reality. He stands somewhat distinct in Lovecraft's broader bibliography. While it lacks the explicit mention of Cthulhu or Nyarlathotep, it deeply embodies the core Lovecraftian themes of cosmic insignificance, the fragility of human reason, and the insidious nature of ancient evils that lie just beneath the surface of our mundane reality. It is a story rooted in a very specific geographical and emotional context, Lovecraft's own visceral loathing of New York City, making it intensely personal and powerfully reflective of his biases and anxieties. Unlike some of his more overtly cosmic tales that send protagonists across galaxies or into other dimensions, he grounds its horror in the familiar, transforming the very ground beneath our feet, the very structures we build, into agents of unspeakable dread. It shares kinship with stories like The Shunned House, which similarly explores an ancient lingering evil tied to a specific location and lineage, or The Lurking Fear, which delves into the unspeakable truths hidden beneath the earth. Yet its urban setting and the specific mechanism of temporal theft give it a unique flavour, a sense of immediate suffocating horror that is both modern and primeval. It reminds us that the most terrifying entities don't always come from beyond the stars. Sometimes they have been here all along, patiently waiting for the opportune moment to reclaim their dominion, hidden within the very foundations of our civilization. In reflecting upon He today, its chilling message continues to resonate with a disturbing potency. The anxieties about urban environments, the fear of losing one's identity in the anonymity of a massive city, the sense of a hidden past lurking beneath modern facades, these are timeless concerns. Lovecraft, through his own profound discomfort, tapped into a universal dread of the unknown, of the things that exist beyond our control and comprehension. The idea that our progress might be built upon a foundation of ancient, malevolent forces, and that the very fabric of our reality could be an illusion maintained by unseen entities, remains a terrifying prospect. The story serves as a potent reminder that our perception of the world is fragile, and that sanity itself is a delicate construct, easily shattered by even a fleeting glimpse of the abyssal truths that lie beyond our comfortable illusions. Lovecraft's He is a testament to the idea that sometimes the greatest horrors are not found in distant galaxies, but in the very heart of the familiar, waiting patiently in the shadowed alleys and crumbling houses of our own cities, ready to reveal their unspeakable truths to those cursed enough to truly see. If you have found yourself captivated, or perhaps utterly disquieted by this journey into Lovecraft's urban nightmare and the chilling depths of He, then I implore you to consider the chilling implications for yourself. What ancient horrors lie beneath the very ground you tread? What secrets do your cities truly hold? The world of H.P. Lovecraft is vast, filled with cosmic terrors, forgotten gods, and the fragile sanity of those who dare to glimpse the truth. There are countless more tales of unspeakable dread waiting to be uncovered, and more analyses like this one to plumb the terrifying depths of his vision. So, if the whispers of Cthulhu, the dread of Dunwich, and the shadows of Arkham call to you, if you hunger for more insights into the master of cosmic horror, then now is the time to act. Please like this video to help us spread the word about these terrifying tales, and subscribe for more Lovecraft videos, where we will continue to explore the darkest corners of his imagination and the enduring power of his unique brand of horror.